I have started. That's good. Let me come. Perfect. Right. So we're going to go right back to the beginning of your journey, Carmen, and look at what attracted you initially to go into the States in the first place.
Okay, well, I was honestly really late in deciding that I wanted to go, so I kind of I was very like stuck on whether if I wanted to stay or if I wanted to like kind of go and experience it just with kind of the experiences that I had. But it wasn't probably until like a year before I actually went that I decided that I really wanted to go. Um, so with that, like I honestly kind of just spoke to my parents about it. I'm like, I think I just want to give it a go. Like, there's no point in not giving it a go and then regretting it years down the line. So I said to them, like, might as well give it a shot. If I enjoy it, I can stay out there. If I don't like it, I can easily come home. So that was kind of the gist of it. And then we got in contact with Pro Dream USA, an agency, to kind of help me get through the steps and start my journey of getting there.
Fab. So you did use an agent to then take you through that process. Fab. How did that go for you? Did you find that really positive?
I felt like there was definitely when we joined the agency, it was really positive. They helped me basically outlined everything of what I needed to do, um, processes of getting visa, like what to expect, what the coaches were wanting, kind of just the best way of how to promote yourself in that way, I guess. It probably wasn't until we actually started doing things like the visa that we wish we kind of changed it a little bit. Because I think there was a few, like we got told about a few costs, which was perfectly fine. And then there was also a few hidden costs in there as well that kind of add up. So I think there's definitely positive and negatives too. I think just finding an agency that works for you and making sure that everything is covered and you know exactly what you need to do and exactly when and how to do it.
Yeah. So from that, if you're saying if there was like some hidden cost within going that route, would you be advising someone looking to potentially use an agent going forward to maybe then ask them for the full disclosure of all the costs that you're going to have in that process? Do you think?
Yeah, I would definitely do that. I know we got given basically a contract of everything that they were kind of expecting us to pay for. But with that, I think honestly talking to other people who have gone through the process to make sure that all of that's accurate, because when you're kind of going into an agency clueless on what you're doing and how to get there, you just kind of like are given this and it's like, okay, well, this is what I need to do. And it's not until you're actually in the moment where you're like, oh, well, we didn't get told about this. We didn't get told about that. So I think speaking to people who have already kind of done the process as well as making an agency to make sure that you are making the right decision and that you know everything is kind of written down. This is what you're given. This is what you're doing, type of deal.
Brilliant. No, that's really good advice, and hopefully we've got enough athletes in Scotland that would potentially, support that for athletes who are considering that process. Fab. So in terms of you then choosing the university that you went to and that, what was your kind of thinking behind where you ended up?
Well, I think it was harder and different than a lot of other people's process because obviously COVID hit the time that I was being recruited. So I couldn't get any visits, couldn't see any of the unis, going out blindsided, which was honestly really scary. Um, but I think like for me, it was a lot of intuition on where, after talking to unis, on where I wanted to go. And I think finding things that are important to you, because I know like the relationship with the coach was important to me. And there's little things such as like rooming, where you're going to live, like if you need a car, for example, that kind of influence all those things. And also like the team environment as well. You don't want to go to a team that is obviously not very well bonded and it's kind of just very spread out when you maybe need a ride somewhere. I think it's just a lot of little things. Again, like talking to people about it and just making sure, talking to teammates about it, making sure that you are getting the right picture of the uni and not just from the coach. I know that's what I did and it worked really, really well. But I think just making sure that it's a healthy environment that for me reminded me a place of home um, has worked really well.
Fab, that's really good. Okay, so fast forward all those bits. So you've done all your groundwork, which sounds like you've done really well, which is probably why you've had that positive experience. How did you find the transition, the initial when you went from being in home off to the States?
I think my freshman year was like a really big high and then a really big low. Like I first got there and I traveled by myself. So my parents just sent me off as a 17-year-old on a plane. Here you go, not knowing anyone whatsoever. So when I first got there, I think all of it was a big culture shock because you're kind of like, okay, well, straight into adulthood, you're so far from home, you don't have your parents to really help you, all you've got is a phone call. So for me, coach was really, really good in that aspect of taking me places, making sure my bank was right, my phone was right, getting stuff from my room and all that sort of stuff, which can be very overwhelming when you're kind of doing it almost with a stranger. Um, but yeah, like my first semester there was really, really positive with all that stuff, especially with the support system that I had at that time and still do. Um, and I think like it was more of just a learning experience of adapting and how to go from like one culture to another with school and foods and just trying to figure stuff out. And I think when I came back at Christmas, I was just like on such a high. And then you kind of go back out in that spring semester and it's a little bit different because you kind of realize what you've missed from home at that time. So you're kind of getting like the shock of going out there and then you get the shock of kind of coming back and missing home the second semester. So it's kind of, for me, it was a very like weird experience, but it was also a good experience and a bad experience that allowed me to just kind of grow into adulthood in a different way than I think a lot of people have.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you for that. So, in terms of when you went back out after Christmas with that whole emotional, I suppose, pool after you came back, how did you deal with that? Did you have a good support network around you, or did you do things a little bit differently to allow you to support those feelings you had at the time?
Yeah, well, I think going back out, I didn't honestly realize what was kind of happening because you go off such a high and you go back out and you're like, I don't really know why I'm feeling like this at all. And it wasn't until I spoke to coach and she basically said, go and speak to a sports psychologist that we have, or we've got a team sports psychologist. So I spoke to her and she basically said the same thing about like, you go home, you come here, it's a new place, new things, and then it's like you go home, realize what you've missed, and you come back and you're like, oh, I actually miss all of these things. So I was very lucky with the fact that I had that support system that I can go talk to, and I also had my parents to talk to about it as well. So I think that support system was really beneficial and really important, but it's also having the self-awareness to realize, okay, well, I am missing home. That's okay to miss home, and I have people I can talk to about it if I need to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's great. And that point around about your self-awareness is key and be able to ask for help when you realise. So fab. Thanks for sharing that, Carmen. Um, so onwards on your journey, you know, obviously you've been out in the States now. Is it you're in are you going into your fourth year?
Yes.
Yeah, so fourth year. So 3 years you've been out there. Has there been any like challenges or unforeseen challenges you've had within that first 3 years that you think, with looking back, or maybe do that a little bit differently, or has it all been quite a really period of growth for you? Is there anything you think that you reflected on so far?
I think the biggest thing for me was honestly with regards to the team, not so much with the processes of things, because I think it's just such a big adjustment going from kind of a lifestyle that's busy to like a full on, complete, almost adult schedule of what you're doing. Something like you kind of learn to manage your time and what you need personally because you're spending so much time with a team. You don't realize like I need some time for myself. And I think like at that time it's very easy to get caught up in okay, you're in a team, you constantly need to be with the team, you need to have good relationships here, good relationships there, like, and it can get really hard, especially in a group of girls. For us, like, I know it's very easy with the drama and all of that stuff, and I think it's just making sure, and I wish I did better, was looking after myself and realizing it's okay to say no to, like team meetups or whatever. It's just finding out what's healthy for you and what works for you, because it's so easy because if you're constantly with the team, constantly overwhelmed, your golf and yourself's not going to be great. So I think just really taking that time to focus on yourself and figuring out that it's okay to take time away and talk to your parents and talk to coach about what you need as well, I think is super important. I wish I would have done that better in my freshman and sophomore year.
Fab, thanks, Carmen. Okay, so for anybody who's considering this journey off out into the USA, what would be your top tips? You've maybe kind of covered some of that already, in fairness, because you've given some fantastic advice. But if you had a couple of top tips that you would give anybody thinking about it, what would it be?
I think if you're thinking about it, I would say really taking your time on getting to know the people that you're going to be spending time with the support staff and all of that stuff. Because as soon as you're out there, that's all you have realistically. Like for me, it really helped with, because the coach out there that I have is like a mom. She's like a second mom to me, which I think is absolutely great. I can go to her about anything, and it's really, really helped, especially going there as an international. Because if you're on a team with a bunch of USA players, it's hard to relate to them, if I'm being honest. Like they have their little stuff, but it's like a whole different experience that you kind of go out there yourself. So I think having someone to share that with is really important. And I think just making sure that you're organized with your time management going out there instead of trying to figure that when you are out there is really important, especially when you're straight into things and don't have much time to like process and all of that stuff. I think just making sure that you go to a place that you know is the fit for you, and if it's not, you can always change it or come home or whatever, but just making sure that the environment that you are in is exactly what you want and meets all of your needs. Because once you're out there, you're kind of like, okay, well, you got all of this stuff to figure out, and it's just important to kind of have your space and be happy out there. As much as it is stressful, you need to make sure that you're okay and that you're happy and that you have time to yourself, and that it's just a really good environment to be in. You want to be out there happy and not be depressed as much as you are with being away from home.
Fab. No, that's really, really good advice. And it's so good to hear that you've got that relationship with your coach, because that's obviously been a key to what you've mentioned that a lot to your journey that you've been on. So that's fab. So credit to her as well for being, being that person. So the last one I've got for you is if you could sum up your experience in 3 words, and I know that's really tough, 3 words to describe it, what would they be?
Um, I'd say growth is probably the first one. I would say inspiring is the second one. And this is hard.
You don't have to have a third. If it's growth and inspiring was your two, that's absolutely fine.
I would say excitement is the last one.
No, that's good. That probably sums up, and that's kind of come through with everything you've said, in fairness. So, that's fab. So thank you, Carmen. I'll pop us off of record with my dodgy recording skills. Oh.